Goliath supporting his battlecruisers, that could actually make a big difference, especially if, depending on the upgrades of the ground weapons versus the air. I'm going to try to get a look here again at the upgrades. I need to pay more attention to that. Wow, I can barely see that. I cannot see what those upgrades are, so hopefully you guys can. It looks like, I don't know, maybe 1-2 or 2-2. Hard to tell. So unfortunately, even though it's a really important thing to point out, I can't really point that out just because it's so hard to read there. Hopefully you can see that. Anyways, it looks like Fantasy still does kind of have Light contained, so Light can't expand again. They haven't shown if Fantasy had taken another expansion or not. Looks like Light's moving in here. Eventually, we are going to see this battlecruiser on battlecruiser battle. Light does have a couple of dropships of his own, so probably just some tanks in there to support his, or possibly Goliath to support his battlecruiser force. Looks like he's moving to the left. It doesn't look like, okay, it looks like a scan just went down right now, so I think that Fantasy has seen that, or maybe not, because now he's moving his battlecruisers away. I don't know what he's doing. He should be going to meet these battlecruisers. Maybe he's trying to do a complete counterattack of his own, using all of his tanks and all of his ground force. Looks like Light going to get in here and totally take out that expansion. At the same time, Fantasy is counterattacking. He's ignoring his base up at the top left and going to counterattack. Light just sending his SCVs to die because he knows he needs to create the side. Light is going to kill off all these expansions here, and again, I think Fantasy is going to be hurting for money because even though Light did render all of his expansions, just gave up all of his expansions on the right, they were already all mined out. So now, even though it's 3-base, essentially versus 3-base, all of Light's expansions at least are mining, well, except for that one because there's no SCVs there, so maybe they both have enough money. Fantasy has moved in here with his tanks. He's going to try to put a little pressure on, but in the meantime, Light has those siege tanks in a higher elevated position, and he also put a defense matrix on them for just, I don't know, not really any point of that. But anyways, it looks like Fantasy is coming in here for the big attack. Light has all of his forces in one area. Fantasy has all of his areas, and here comes the possible Yamato. It looks like he's trying to Yamato that science vessel. Wow! Giant long-range science vessel. That's actually a pretty important move because those science vessels could be critical with that EMP. So, actually a pretty smart move there, I think, by Light, and Fantasy coming in there with his tanks on the right side, trying to put a little bit of pressure, but I think in the end it's not really going to matter. However, those Goliaths are going to matter. It looks like that expansion going down. I don't think any player even cares about making more money right now. It doesn't even matter. They're both just trying to see who can win with the forces they have. The whole map is almost essentially mined out, and if any player tries to move out and get an expansion, it's just going to get spotted and take it out. So neither player caring about making any more money at this stage, it doesn't look like. Neither player trying to get an expansion, but just trying to position their forces correctly. Fantasy did take out that one expansion, and it looks like Fantasy now just trying to mine gas. He probably has enough minerals saved up, but perhaps, battlecruisers are very gas heavy. So here comes the EMP. It looks like the science vessel looking out, trying to get a scout to look for those battlecruisers of Light, but it looks like the forces are very far positioned away from each other. Not sure if this is actually a drop, probably just a scout going out for Light so we can see the position of the battlecruisers, and it looks like, yes, he is reacting to that by taking his battlecruiser force while moving around. Both players just posturing, just trying to get the maximum amount of battlecruisers that they can get basically for their side, trying to max out there. And it looks like Fantasy is starting to now mine a little bit in another base, so maybe getting a little worried about not having enough money. But again, I mean, both players have got to be maxed at this stage, and Fantasy again does have some of that invested in tanks. Okay, now it looks like he's just going to be freeing up those tanks for some side. Wow, I don't know why. It's not very smart why Light wasted Yamato there on those tanks, but maybe he just felt like he had an extra one. I don't know, that was a smart idea. But both players, well, Light has a significant number of battlecruisers, I think, advantage over Fantasy, but Fantasy has a ton of Goliaths now too. And the reason that's actually a pretty smart move is because it's going to be hard to target both those battlecruisers and the Goliaths. And while the battlecruisers of Light are trying to get Yamatos off on the battlecruisers of Fantasy, those Goliaths will just be pelting Light's battlecruisers with the probably the current boosted upgraded rockets there. So we'll see how it pans out. It's still going to come a lot down to micro and which targets they choose to target, whether Light chooses to target the Goliaths or chooses to target the battlecruisers. I almost think it's hard to say what would be smarter, but I think it's going to come down to double Yamato, and then Fantasy's Goliath will probably make the difference in that battle, I think. We'll have to see what happens. Also, it could very much come down to these Science Vessels and who gets the EMP off. If one person gets the EMP off on the other player's battlecruisers, then that's going to almost be the game right there. Although, I did see a game a long time ago where it was max battlecruisers versus battlecruisers, and one player lost all of his Yamato, and still, without the Yamato, I think ended up coming out on top. And we could see that here just because there's so many more battlecruisers for Light. But wow, this is a long TBT. They're just both posturing around. And there goes, wow, EMP does get off on all those battlecruisers. So that's a huge move for Light. Light sacrificing the Science Vessel, and now he's going to try to move into his battlecruisers. Fantasy's just running all his battlecruisers away because he knows he's weak at this moment. And he does move his battlecruisers away, but those battlecruisers are going to take forever to get the Yamato back. And Light now is moving in here. It looks like this could be it. We'll have to see. Both players probably trying to scan and just see the position of the other players. Fantasy's trying to also get his own EMP off, because if he can get his own EMP off, he'll be able to counter Light's EMP. It looks like a couple of battlecruisers coming in, just killing those tanks. Again, I don't know why Light... It's weird that Light's... oh, I see, because Light is actually trying to get rid of those tanks because he has some tanks of his own now to take care of the Goliaths. So Light smartly knows that the Goliaths are going to play a factor in this big attack, and so he does have the tanks of his own. Only a few tanks of his own. That is going to make a difference. Both players having a lot of time to think about what they need to do to be the most effective in this attack. What's the perfect unit combination that they want? And obviously, you want to have a lot of battlecruisers, but those supporting units do play a big factor, believe it or not, especially those Goliaths, I think, are going to play a huge factor. I still think, I mean, those tanks, I don't know if those tanks are going to do enough against the Goliaths. I still think that Fantasy has the better unit combination, but Light does have a ton more, well, maybe not a ton more, but a couple more battlecruisers than Fantasy does. It looks like, I mean, they both have 2 control groups, so maybe not. Maybe it's just 2 control groups versus 2 control groups of battlecruisers, and then tanks for Light and Goliaths for Fantasy. But we'll have to see here what happens in this big attack. Again, Fantasy is trying to rebuild his Yamato right now, rebuild up his energy for the Yamato. It looks like Light is smartly actually taking out this base in the top left, send a couple battlecruisers up there. The one thing that's important too is actually if you can stack your battlecruisers, that's a good defense against Yamato because it makes it a lot harder to target. If you see how Fantasy's battlecruisers are a little more stacked together, whereas Light's were, at least for a while, pretty spread apart, and that's bad because it just makes it that much easier for your opponent to target with Yamato. Right now, I think that Fantasy probably has his Yamato pretty powered back up. Fantasy never got an EMP off on Light, so certainly Light is going to have all of his Yamato at the very least. It looks like, I don't know if Light fully took out that base at the top left. He might have. He probably did because Fantasy never went to go counter that. Scan going off. Both players probably trying to Yamato, or Light at least trying to get a Yamato. Light's coming in here again to take out that base, and both players still just positioning for that final attack. Running out of water here. Alright, so both players just positioning around. Here it comes. This could be it. I don't know. No, maybe not. Fantasy's pulling back a little bit. Light killing off one Goliath. Not going to make a huge difference there. And both players, wow, just, I don't know why they're not just committing and going for it. I don't know. Maybe Fantasy is waiting on a battlecruiser or two, waiting to get that money up. They're both kind of mining a little bit. But I wouldn't think it would make that big of a difference. I guess both players are just scared to be the one to attack. I don't know what they're kind of waiting for. I guess just the positioning hasn't been right. Fantasy obviously could be waiting for his Yamato, but I'm not sure why Light was waiting, other than just trying to get a better position off. Again, look at all those Goliaths moving around. That's a pretty significant force of Goliaths. I think it is going to make a huge difference in this battle. Again, I couldn't see the upgrades, but I imagine that everybody's probably 3-3 on probably everything. Maybe not ground attack, but certainly air is probably 3-3. And here comes the big attack. Yamatos or EMPs going off, it looks like, and taking out the Yamato of Light. Now Fantasy's going to come in probably with his own Yamato. Tons of Goliath shots going off. Fantasy's in here, gets a couple Yamato off. Tons of Yamato going off. All the Yamato for Fantasy, and Light has no Yamato. Light's got to try to retreat, but he's not retreating. He's just going to go in here, try to take out the battlecruisers, not targeting the Goliaths. The Goliaths, look at that. Goliaths taking out all those battlecruisers, and tanks killing the Goliaths, and it's almost kind of evening up. It's hard to see who is ahead. I guess Fantasy's ahead because he has a significant battlecruiser force. Looks like, yes, Fantasy is ahead. Light's having to run back with his battlecruisers, and those 2 battlecruisers were out of position because they were attacking that base. Fantasy now going to kill off all the battlecruisers of Light. Light's got to run his battlecruisers away. Light's going to have nothing, and I think Light is going to GG because he's not going to have the money to rebuild all of his force. It looks like he's building more tanks or building more ground force. I don't know why he's even running right now. Light should just try to turn around and just do as much damage on those. Here he goes. Okay, he was waiting for Yamato. That's what he was doing, but that only got 1 kill. I think if he would have just turned around and fought, he could have actually got maybe 2 or 3 kills as opposed to just 1. It looks like Light might be switching to Wraiths because they were showing that he was upgrading Cloak or upgrading something there at the control tower, so it looks like Light's going to try to counter by building a lot of Wraiths. That could be smart because that will maybe catch Fantasy off guard, but it's a timing thing. Fantasy has the timing on his side right now. He needs to do something now. He's actually taking out all the starports, or excuse me, Light's taking out all the starports of Fantasy, so that's actually a really smart move by Light to take out the starports, but now he's backing up, running away, I guess because of the race that are about to come out for Fantasy. So honestly, I think that Fantasy has the advantage. Yes, Fantasy definitely has the advantage because he's got a ton more battlecruisers, and it looks like a couple more battlecruisers